Step into the Scottish Highlands, a land where the wind itself whispers tales of conflict and the very terrain transforms skirmishes into battles for survival. This region is a realm of shadows and hidden truths, where the air hangs thick with the scent of peat and an aura of mystery. The ground, unyielding and stubborn, is nonetheless alive with the echoes of past battles and the spirits of those who rest uneasily. Here, traditional structured armies often met their downfall against the untamed ferocity of the jagged mountains and concealed glens. The landscape itself acted as a formidable adversary, conspiring against the invaders. Confrontations in the Highlands weren't marked by the steady beat of marching drums, but erupted from ambushes, shrouded in dense mist and hidden within forests that seemed to absorb all sound. Welcome, then, to the Highlands, a place where geography was the most potent enemy, forging warriors whose harshness mirrored the land itself. Imagine entering the wild grandeur of the Scottish Highlands, a domain where nature itself assumed the dual role of ally and opponent. This raw, untamed territory, characterized by its jagged peaks reaching for the sky and its shadowy glens winding through the earth, was a battlefield governed by its own unique laws. The unpredictable nature of the terrain dictated the rhythm of warfare, forcing armies to adapt quickly or be swallowed by the very ground beneath their feet. There was no place for neat lines of soldiers or predictable maneuvers. The land was a cryptic testing ground, challenging the mettle of anyone who dared traverse its treacherous paths. The Highlands were as perilous as they were breathtakingly beautiful. Though armies arrived with imposing displays of might, they quickly became secondary players in a drama directed by the elements in the land itself. The mountains stood like vigilant sentinels, offering both sanctuary and strategic vantage points to those who understood their ways, while promising destruction to unprepared outsiders. Mist and fog rolled in like ethereal shrouds, cloaking movements under a veil of secrecy that could entrap even the most seasoned commanders. For those unfamiliar with the landscape, every wrong step carried the potential for disaster. Yet for those who were born into this stark beauty, these lands were as vital an ally as any weapon they wielded. Survival within this natural stronghold demanded not just strength, but cunning. It was a challenge and an invitation to those willing to master its intricate landscape. The legendary Highland clans, shaped into fierce warriors by this extraordinary terrain, possessed an intimate knowledge of these hills. Their understanding allowed them to outmaneuver their enemies with sophisticated tactics executed in ways that seemed almost mystical. Survival within this natural stronghold demanded not just strength, but cunning. It was a challenge and an invitation to those willing to master its intricate landscape. The legendary Highland clans, shaped into fierce warriors by this extraordinary terrain, possessed an intimate knowledge of these hills. Their understanding allowed them to outmaneuver their enemies with sophisticated tactics executed in ways that seemed almost mystical. Beneath the serene surface of the glens lay dangers invisible to the untrained eye. To newcomers, these lush valleys might appear like idyllic scenes, but they served as silent killers, transforming into ambush sites in an instant. Local warriors, intimately familiar with every twist and turn, used these glens for rapid, covert movements. And then there were the bogs, treacherous expanses that could swallow both men and beasts. Armies stumbling into these soggy areas quickly found their progress halted, their organized formations collapsing into hopeless confusion. Unlike the structured battles fought on open fields elsewhere, conflicts in the Highlands blurred the lines of traditional warfare. Here, fighting extended beyond mapped areas, spilling across the fluid boundaries of each clan's territory. Battles ranged over mountains, through glens, and across this wild land where survival was the ultimate, enigmatic teacher. For outsiders, attempting to discern territorial borders was like trying to grasp mist, a futile endeavor in an ever-changing reality. Armies arriving in search of glory or conquest were instead met with a living canvas, a landscape whose secrets could humble even the most powerful forces. In the Highlands, knowledge of the land was an invaluable asset. Growing up in this rugged environment, Highlanders developed a skill in navigating the terrain that was more potent than advancements in weaponry. This deep understanding transformed warfare into a subtle, intricate dance that confounded even the most disciplined soldiers. The local lore was rich with tactical wisdom, as stories shared by ancient tellers held as much strategic value as any military manual. These narratives instilled lasting lessons in cunning and adaptability, principles echoed in the tales of young shepherds who, in times of war, served as scouts, guiding their kin with precise knowledge of the land. Highland warfare wasn't merely a product of the terrain, it grew organically from social structures deeply rooted in clan heritage. Each clan functioned as both a family unit and a military force, bound by unwavering loyalty and a shared purpose. Warriors were more than just soldiers, they embodied a collective identity, carrying the honor of past generations and the aspirations of future kin. In battle, the swiftness and element of surprise mirrored the close bonds within the clans, reflecting ancient customs that made every confrontation a defense of their very identity. The mystical elements woven into Highland warfare created a unique blend of strategy and a sense of the supernatural. Warriors entered battle not only with physical weapons, but also with spiritual ones, drawing on charms and blessings believed to invoke ancient powers. Prophecies flowed through the land as freely as its rivers, influencing decisions as profoundly as any military commander. This realm of omens and myths added a layer of the fantastical to every engagement, whispering ancient secrets that inspired courage in those who listened. For centuries, the Highlands remained both isolated and a volatile crucible of strategic conflict. This isolation, serving as both a barrier and a unifying force, shaped cultures and tactics uniquely suited to this wild environment. Armies attempting to conquer it discovered that overcoming its isolation was often their most significant battle. Here, victory lay in navigating an environment that constantly reshaped strategy, a true test of perseverance. As we leave behind these lands steeped in myth and legend, it becomes clear that Scotland's Highlands were more than just a backdrop. They were the very force that shaped the warriors who roamed them. The legacy of these fierce fighters endures, a testament to their cunning, resilience, and their ability to harness the land's power. Even today, their stories rustle through the glens and ride the winds across these ancient hills, a haunting reminder of a time when the connection between land and warrior forged an unbreakable alliance, respected far beyond the boundaries of the Highlands. The Scottish Highlands, with their striking rugged beauty, were more than just a mosaic of jagged peaks and shadowy glens. They were the birthplace and meeting ground of ancient clans whose lives were intimately tied to the land they fiercely defended. Within these close-knit communities, kinship was the vital pulse, an unbreakable thread weaving together family, loyalty, and the land into a single rich tapestry. Each clan was its own distinct world, led by a chief who embodied the roles of both military leader and father figure. Life revolved around the clan's name and honor, a living banner that every member was prepared to defend with fierce devotion. Young Highlanders absorbed their roles early, immersed in traditions that ingrained both unity and an unyielding dedication to their challenging environment. The land was their home, their battlefield, their teacher, and their weapon. Cattle were paramount, serving as the lifeblood and primary currency of this world. These hardy beasts were more than mere livestock. They represented power and prestige. This made cattle raids, meticulously planned and audaciously executed, an essential element of Highland life, integrating economy and warfare. The lush pastures of the valleys were seen as valuable resources, and every raid was a bold act of economic strategy. These campaigns were far from random scuffles. They were a precisely choreographed dance, with every step relying on an intimate understanding of the landscape. Raiders struck with the sudden intensity of a Highland storm, executing swift retreats into familiar shadows where pursuit was futile. In this realm of unpredictable weather and stunning geography, the terrain served as both mentor and constant adversary. Clan members learned to seek refuge in treacherous peaks and draw strength from the biting winds and heavy rains. Training was not confined to a practice ground, but was seamlessly integrated into daily life. Young men, and occasionally women, became adept at stalking prey, navigating perilous bogs, and finding paths where none seemed to exist. The harsh climate tempered their bodies and minds into steel, making them resilient warriors by both nature and necessity. Every hill became a lesson in stealth, every river a test of strategy, until the land itself was etched into their consciousness as vividly as their own bloodlines. Forests, dense and mysterious, provided perfect settings for the ambush warfare at which the clans excelled. These tactics eschewed conventional battlefronts in favor of the art of surprise, capitalizing on confusion and speed. The thick canopies of ancient woods masked both sound and sight, transforming serene groves into stages for sudden, overwhelming attacks. Under such cover, Highlanders moved like ghosts, masters of their wooded domain. Their foes, meanwhile, found themselves besieged amidst an eerie symphony of cracking branches and ominous, shifting shadows, attacked and then abandoned to silence as quickly as the mist rolling through the trees. For the Highland clans, vengeance was a sacred obligation deeply ingrained in their very being. It wasn't about mindless retaliation, but a calculated strategy aimed at maintaining balance and respect. Every slight demanded retribution, a cycle as natural and relentless as the changing seasons. The isolation imposed by geography amplified the need for solidarity and retribution, fostering a fierce loyalty born of the necessity to protect and avenge their kin. Justice was often administered personally and communally within the remote Highlands, where local customs frequently superseded the distant decrees of kings. Revenge was not simply violence, it was a bond that knitted the community together in shared purpose and tradition, ensuring every act of retribution served the dual objectives of honor and survival. Beliefs ran deeper within the fabric of clan life than one might initially observe. Superstitions and omens were the invisible yet palpable forces guiding actions and aspirations. Warriors sought blessings from eerie landscapes steeped in spirits and legends before entering combat, engaging in rituals believed to tip the scales of fate in their favor. When a battlefield unexpectedly became shrouded in mist, it was seen as much as a significant omen as a practical advantage. Such beliefs enhanced morale and reinforced unity, affirming the presence of spiritual forces they felt accompanied them, a cosmic validation of their cause, interwoven with these mystical landscapes. At the heart of every clan stood the chief, a figure as much a part of the land as he was a product of myth and lineage. Leadership was a blend of authority and tradition, demanding both wisdom and valor, particularly during turbulent times. Each chief had to prove themselves worthy of respect, thriving on both inherited reverence and earned merit. Decisions frequently emerged from the shadowed deliberations of elder councils, emphasizing a nuanced balance between command and communal input. The chief's influence extended beyond decisions made during raids or festivals. It resonated in the day-to-day continuity of what it meant to belong to the Highlands. The often overlooked heroines of this narrative, the clan women, were the very foundation supporting this vibrant saga of survival and resilience. Tasked with guarding the hearth and raising the young, their roles transcended the domestic sphere. They were keepers of oral traditions, managing diplomacy at home, and occasionally acting as silent defenders. In moments of dire need, it is said they inspired as powerfully as the rugged earth they cultivated, reminding everyone of their deep connections to their storied past. Even amidst warfare, moments of respite, such as feasts, brought the clans together in a temporary balm of camaraderie and reflection. These gatherings offered a break from conflict, their joy interwoven with strategic discussions and storytelling. These occasions were crucial respites, allowing for the retelling of tales of valor and binding the clans closer through shared history and purpose. The Highlands echoed with their laughter and song as these events solidified enduring networks across families and even former foes. In the memory-infused lands of the Highlands, the legacy of the clans persists as an indelible part of these geographies. They were not simply inhabitants, but integral participants in the symphony of the ancient landscape. Their tales remain, whispered through the ruins and pathways, capturing the essence of a bygone era and inviting those who wander these storied lands to listen closely. The bond forged by the clans between the land and its people is still palpable today, as vibrant as the echoes of yesteryear. In medieval Scotland, the Highlands served as a natural fortress, deliberately isolating its people through a lack of developed roads. The undulating landscape of craggy mountains, shadowy forests, and sprawling moors provided more than just scenic beauty. It shaped the very way of life and warfare there. Without paved paths to guide them, travelers and armies navigated through ancient tracks and animal trails, winding their way around the natural barriers. This seclusion fostered a culture deeply rooted in kinship and tradition, Untainted by external influences, the Highlanders, intimately familiar with every nook and cranny of their challenging terrain, wielded the cryptic knowledge of the land like a double-edged sword during conflicts. Navigating the Highlands without engineered thoroughfares demanded both resilience and resourcefulness. Rivers often served as pathways, although sudden floods could transform these routes into perilous traps. The rocky terrain necessitated sure-footed determination and a detailed understanding of its complex features. The environment not only dictated movement, but also stood in stark contrast to the feudal systems prevalent in medieval Europe, influencing clan policies and trade practices that were more reliant on barter and local exchanges. Here, the flow of information and goods proceeded at a pace set by the geography, cultivating a society fiercely protective of its heritage and wary of foreign interference. The rugged life in the Highlands was a testament to defiance, a declaration of independence echoed in every stone and stream. The Highlands, with all their natural grandeur, served as a formidable obstacle in military campaigns. For those born of the land, these familiar peaks and marshes were both a sanctuary and a weapon. In stark contrast, invaders accustomed to the more ordered landscapes of open plains and Roman roads often found themselves bogged down in uncertainty. Swamps and bogs could swallow entire regiments, while narrow passes were ideal locations for ambushes. The land dictated the scale and methods of warfare, rendering sheer numbers and advanced technology ineffective against the stealth and agility of the native clans. Geography was the Highlanders' loyal ally, a guardian against the tide of conquest that sought to invade these lands. For centuries, aspiring conquerors underestimated the crucial role the Highland terrain played in their resistance. Every hill and valley held secrets that the locals exploited to their advantage. The deep connection the Highlanders shared with their environment transformed natural obstacles into strategic opportunities. In fogs thick with mist or bitter cold that chilled to the bone, foreign troops found their resolve sapped by anger and confusion. More than once, the weather turned the tide of battle, becoming a sort of laughing ally to the native fighters, illustrating how the land itself could actively join forces against invaders. Life in the Highlands was profoundly shaped by its geographical isolation, heavily influencing the formation of clan society. In the absence of roads, tightly knit communities emerged, ruled by lineage and allegiance rather than external governance. The region's natural boundaries shielded them from outside influence, allowing for the development of unique cultural norms intimately tied to survival. Hospitality was not just a custom, but a necessity, for here every traveler could potentially be friend or foe, and welcoming strangers was both a strength and a safeguard. The clan system fostered self-reliance, strengthening a society that thrived on using its own resources to weave a cultural tapestry as robust as the hills themselves. As isolation preserved cultural heritage, stories and songs flourished in the echoes of the mountains, further strengthening communal bonds. The harsh, beautiful land bred a culture less susceptible to feudal doctrines, fostering a resilience that baffled outsiders. Highland life remained distinct, a unique fabric woven with the threads of language, folklore, and music, resisting the slow encroachment of unity seen elsewhere in Britain. This enduring identity ensured that even if physically subdued, the essence of Highland culture, preserved in tales and traditions, persisted, defiantly unaffected by the tides of time. In warfare, Highland tactics evolved into a unique blend perfectly suited to their environment. Confrontation demanded speed, stealth, and a precise touch, not traditional formations or grand strategies. Guerrilla tactics, born out of necessity and refined over generations, utilized the local geography with remarkable precision. Ambushes sprang with the suddenness of mountain weather, swift and merciless. The Highlanders controlled their homeland with an artistry that turned the lack of infrastructure into a strategic asset, crafting victories as lasting as the legends told around their fires. Though the elements were fickle and unpredictable allies, they were not without their benefits. Highlanders navigated their changeable climate with practiced ease, gaining an advantage from rain-soaked mud and snow-clad peaks. A sudden storm or morning fog could mean ruin for the unwary, while the prepared Highlander knew when to turn nature's fury against an unsuspecting enemy. Incorporating the elements into military strategies underscored the inseparable bond between the people and their land, making it clear that here the environment was never just a backdrop. It was an active participant in the unfolding saga of survival. In a world without roads, the art of communication took on an organic, human form. Beacons lit on hilltops by day or night became signals across the vast expanse, utilizing the land's natural vantage points for clan communication. Yet it was the messengers moving silently through paths known only to locals who carried the true weight of messages. These skilled individuals personified a living network, binding the community with trust and understanding that transcended the ephemeral nature of spoken words. Economically, the absence of roads shaped a society built on barter, where the primary currency was livestock, mainly cattle, forming the backbone of exchange. Each clan, compelled into specialization by the limits of nature, developed expertise rooted in available resources. While this fostered robust interdependence and resourcefulness, it also exposed every community to the whims of the elements, reinforcing a collective spirit to withstand adversity. Through the currency of camaraderie, the Highlanders forged a vibrant network that endured through shared values and bonds stronger than any paved road could offer. In the Scottish Highlands, warfare was a shadowy affair, a dance of spectral figures weaving through the misty valleys and rugged terrain. Picture this: a weary troop of lowlanders or English soldiers trudging along a seemingly peaceful glen, only to have that peace shattered by the sudden snap of a twig or the whisper of an arrow slicing through the fog. The Highlanders, true masters of their environment, understood the art of ambush with the skill of artisans. Their mountainous, bog-ridden homeland was a natural labyrinth, and those who stumbled into its depths found no easy escape. Highland warriors used the land as a cloak, melting into the embrace of the dense woods or positioned high above on the ridges, their eyes sharp and watchful. For them, an ambush was more than just a physical attack. It was psychological warfare. To face a Highland warrior meant finding one's courage trapped in a web of fear and confusion, where pathways vanished underfoot and shadows seemed to spring terrifyingly to life. This ability to blend seamlessly into the natural world gave the Highlanders an eerie sense of omnipresence. Every movement within their domain was deliberate and deadly. Dawn raids exploited the day's most vulnerable moment, that fragile point where night gives way to light and eyes are still heavy with sleep. Highlanders moved as silently as wraiths, their forms obscured by the tendrils of early fog. Imagine a village, its fires barely embers, cattle penned in for the night, all ripe for a strategic strike. These were not reckless acts but precise maneuvers, timed to perfection. As Highlanders arrived with the first light of morning, the cries of alarm replaced the birdsong, and serenity crumbled into chaos. The Highland approach to warfare relied heavily on cattle raiding, a practice deeply embedded in their culture. To possess cattle was to wield power and wealth. Each raid was designed to strike at the enemy's core by seizing their most vital resources. Such tactics instantly destabilized rival clans, forcing them to focus on survival rather than vengeance. These raids were not mere thefts, but acts that broadcast dominance across the hills. Each successful capture turned nature's paths into conduits of both sustenance and warfare. When the time came to make a devastating and lasting impact, Highlanders resorted to the harry and burn, a tactic of ruthless efficiency. Picture quiet homesteads nestled in valleys, their byres full, a testament to wealth and the continuity of life. Then imagine the sudden eruption of flames and smoke, bringing doom and desolation. By reducing structures to cinders, Highlanders delivered more than just a blow to resources. They sent a clear message of power and intimidation, asserting an unwavering dominance that reverberated across their lands. But Highlanders were as skilled at disappearing as they were at attacking. Once the alarm had been raised, they would melt into the mist as if they had never existed. Their vanishing acts left their foes stumbling through the smoky haze, grasping at phantoms. Their intimate knowledge of the land, its hidden nooks and secret paths, allowed them to vanish, leaving their presence as nothing more than an unsettling memory in the minds of their confused enemies. Those who pursued them were left frustrated, haunted by the notion of enemies not of flesh and bone, but creatures of the landscape itself. For the Highlanders, retreat was not defeat. Each step away from the enemy was a calculated move, biding time until conditions favored their return. Rather than face confrontation at a disadvantage, they would withdraw to regroup and await an opportune moment. Their retreats were a study in patience and strategic wisdom, leveraging every bend in the path and every hidden trail to their advantage. Central to understanding Highland tactics is recognizing the profound relationship between the people and the land. Unlike their enemies, who relied on regimentation and open battle, Highlanders used the Highlands as an extension of themselves. The landscape dictated the terms and strategies, making the land an intrinsic part of their arsenal, where gravity was a weapon and mist a shield. This tactical brilliance was deeply rooted in Highland culture, a spirit passed down through generations in stories and communal lore. Their warfare was an extension of their lives, interwoven with the sacred ties of family and kinship. Their maneuvers echoed ancestral wisdom, honoring the craft of war not as a separate practice, but as a blend of tradition and survival instincts. The legacy of Highland warfare, though etched in the distant past, still offers valuable lessons in strategy and adaptability today. Highland tactics, born of necessity and ingenuity, serve as a timeless reminder of how unconventional methods can triumph over conventional opposition. It's a story of resilience and mastery, whispered through time, reminding us that the true power of warfare lies not just in weapons and numbers, but in the art of embracing the rhythms of life and land. As history unfolds, these timeless lessons from the Highlands endure, casting their echoes through every valley, where whispers mingle with the mists of memory. The Highland Charge emerged from the rugged heart of the Scottish Highlands, a place where jagged peaks and deep glens shaped both the land and the people who called it home. This striking charge was more than just a military tactic. It was a necessity born from the reality of the Highlanders' lives. With limited resources and facing well-organized armies, they embraced speed and impact as their most powerful allies. The charge is deeply connected to their clan system, a society bound by ties of kinship, cattle, and a fierce sense of honor. This sense of kinship harks back to the Celtic tribal conflicts, where swift victories were prized and lengthy, drawn-out battles were a risky luxury few could afford. Over time, what began as an impromptu necessity evolved into a distinct strategy, a wild yet surprisingly disciplined method of assault. Learned and passed down through the generations, the Highland Charge relied on the land as an accomplice. Picture warriors with wild hair and brightly colored tartans descending steep slopes, the adrenaline of battle fueling every powerful stride. The thunderous sound of their feet and their fierce, wolf-like cries in the air could unsettle even the most steadfast of enemies. As they hurtled downhill in wedge formations, armed with broadswords and ever-ready dirks, their advance was a sheer force of momentum, designed to break enemy ranks before the first sword even met flesh. It was a triumph of heart over pure strategy, capturing both the physical intensity and the visceral terror of combat. The thick air, heavy with the scent of earth and sweat, only amplified the moment's intensity. In this theater of war, the Highlands stood as a formidable ally, and this intimate understanding of the terrain was central to the Highland Charge. The warriors' innate knowledge of every slope and glen turned the landscape into a testing ground for their combat tactics. Positioned high, they became human projectiles, harnessing the natural force of gravity. The rhythms of nature amplified their advance, each step down the mountainside building momentum and speed. With such skilled footing, Highlanders transformed what might have been obstacles into opportunities, turning challenges into advantages with their ferocious grace. For their enemies, the sight of these warriors, their blades catching the fleeting rays of sun through stormy clouds, was nothing short of terrifying. An impending sense of doom loomed as the collective movement of the charge exuded an unstoppable energy. Their battle cries resonated like thunderclaps, disrupting organized ranks and often breaking the enemy's resolve before steel even clashed. Behind them, the echoes of chaos and the pungent scent of fear were unmistakable, unraveling the composure of soldiers accustomed to predictability and structured warfare. The Highlanders' arsenal was as much a testament to ingenuity as it was to the weapons themselves. The broadsword, more than just an elegant piece of forged steel, held a place of reverence in these skirmishes, valued for both its reach and devastating slicing power. The tarred shield was a vital companion in battle, absorbing blows and providing a firm anchor in the surrounding chaos. Dirks and smaller blades completed this lethal trio, optimized for the close-quarter frenzy of battle. The Highland charge was not just raw force, but a seamless choreography of weapons and unwavering willpower. This readiness for battle stemmed from disciplined training and cultural tradition. The young Highlanders, guided by clan elders, cultivated agility, strength, and a deep understanding of their rugged homeland. Their training was holistic, weaving physical conditioning with mental discipline and a knowledge of war tempered by tales of ancestors. Hunting across steep terrains honed their instincts, their breath mingling with the cool mountain air. They grew into warriors prepared to uphold the honor of their clan, bound together by bonds forged in youth, ready to leap into the charge. Famous battles etched the Highland charge into historical memory. At the Battle of Killiecrankie in 1689, its ferocity forced enemies to witness its deadly brilliance firsthand. However, it proved to be a double-edged sword. At Culloden in 1746, the charge met its decisive defeat, overwhelmed by disciplined volleys of musket fire. This brutal lesson revealed the changing tides of warfare, marking the decline of the charge as a dominant tactic. Yet the Highland charge did not fade away quietly. Its cultural significance endured, becoming a symbol of resistance, romanticized in folklore and songs. It stood as a beacon of the indomitable Highland spirit, a spirit not easily erased by time or circumstance. Even as modern warfare evolved, the essence of the charge lingered, echoing through Highland regiments on battlefields far and wide, a testament to its enduring legacy. As we reflect on this audacious tactic, we are reminded that necessity is the mother of strategy. Born from the Highlanders' intimate connection with their environment and identity, the Highland charge transformed the natural into the exceptional. It shows us, through the fog of history, that the most captivating strategies arise from a deep understanding of the terrain, a dance on the knife's edge, forever shaping both warriors and history. In its blend of tradition and radical thought, it embodies a spirit of ingenuity and a legacy that refuses to dim with time. In the rugged landscape of the Scottish Highlands, castles rose not merely as residences for the nobility, but as formidable bastions of power and survival, intricately integrated into the land itself. Unlike the sprawling castles of England, these fortresses were sculpted from the very essence of their surroundings, often positioned defiantly on hilltops with stonework as unyielding as the granite from which it emerged. The construction of these fortifications demanded immense effort, with stones transported across harsh terrains, a testament to their intended permanence and a symbol of dominance over both the environment and their adversaries. These Highland fortresses reflected the warrior society and the landscapes that shaped them. Beyond their defensive functions, the fortresses served as centers of cultural life, where clans gathered for feasts, councils, and celebrations. The thick walls and elevated positions provided both protection and a sense of security, anchoring the community in a world defined by kinship and warfare. Strategically, they transformed the landscape into an ally, leveraging the natural defenses offered by cliffs, rivers, and dense forests. Every construction decision mirrored centuries of conflict, survival, and the undeniable bond between a people and their land. The architects behind these castles were innovators, seamlessly merging known fortification techniques with the Highlands' forbidding topography. Walls contoured around natural rock formations, and interiors were sometimes carved directly from the cliffs. This integration with the land presented attackers with formidable challenges, turning sieges into grueling battles against both the stone structures and the hidden dangers of the environment. Timber towers concealed within the trees masked archer positions, offering stealthy defenses integrated into the natural setting, while moats and flooded marshes created barriers that sapped the energy of invading forces. Assaulting these fortresses required ingenuity. Traditional siege engines like trebuchets and battering rams struggled against the craggy landscapes, with heavy weapons needing to be hauled up rocky paths and supply lines already stretched thin. Attackers often resorted to starvation tactics rather than direct assaults. Yet the defenders within were far from passive, using their intimate knowledge of the land to prepare hidden passages, caches, and brutal counter-traps. Communicating through signal fires or messenger paths, They maintained crucial lines of support and outwitted besiegers at every turn. In the grim calculus of medieval warfare, some attackers resigned themselves to the unspoken martial law of the Highlands. If you can't take it, burn it. Fire became an effective instrument of denial, torching castles to prevent their use by the enemy. Flames consumed timber towers and the resulting smoke billowed ominously across the valleys, a grim reminder of the high cost of defiance. Yet even the ashes of a fortress whispered tales of resilience, as charred stones often rose again, built upon the same indomitable spirit. Life within these walls was more than just a confined existence. It was a vibrant, though tense, convergence of community and survival. The castle functioned like a village, echoing with the daily bustle and the constant undercurrent of vigilance. Lords held court amidst the hum of decisions shaping their people's fortunes, and fortresses served as hubs of cultural and economic life. Feasts solidified alliances, and stories shared around hearths kept ancestral tales alive. Residents carved out lives within cramped quarters, seizing moments of respite amidst duty's relentless cycle. Each fortress possessed unique characteristics reflecting the clans that built them. Diversity in architecture spoke of wealth, resource accessibility, and strategic priorities. Fortress designs varied, from coastal bastions bracing against maritime threats to inland citadels projecting power through elegant stonework. Materials varied, with some castles made of basalt mirroring the harsh landscape, while others showcased quarried stones sourced through trade, underscoring each clan's identity within the Highland tapestry. The stones of these fortresses bore the marks of age-old conflict. Scars from axe and torch told tales of survival. Layered upon these stones were stories of rivalries, wars, and resilience, handed down through generations. The clash of steel, the cries of battle, the haunting sounds of the past. These elements reverberated through every corner, a potent reminder of history's relentless march. Occasionally, tales of hauntings or eerie encounters emerged from those who traversed these ruins at dusk, testifying to the powerful memories embedded within these stones. Today, the legacy of Highland fortresses endures not just as ancient ruins, but as vibrant cultural touchstones. Preservation efforts breathe life into these monuments, striking a delicate balance between conserving history and reimagining it for contemporary audiences. These sites attract global interest, sparking imaginations as visitors wander ancient grounds, contemplating stories built in stone. Yet challenges remain as preserving structural integrity meets the need for modern interpretation, ensuring the fortresses continue to educate and connect Scotland's storied past with those who now gaze upon its enduring ramparts. When English armies ventured into the Scottish Highlands, they arrived with a deceptive sense of power. Rows of disciplined men, gleaming armor, and the rhythmic clatter of boots suggested formidable might, but the rugged terrain and unpredictable weather quickly exposed its fragility. Accustomed to the gentle landscapes of English plains, these troops found themselves ill-suited to the Highlands' harsh demands. Their cumbersome war machines designed for open fields struggled to move through boggy ground and narrow passes. While the English forces had numerical superiority, they lacked adaptability. The Highlands demanded not just soldiers, but strategies shaped by the land's unyielding realities. Expectation quickly gave way to exasperation as the true nature of the Highlands unfolded. Morning drizzles could suddenly escalate into punishing storms, severely reducing visibility and dampening morale. Horses, vital for cavalry charges and transporting supplies, floundered in the ubiquitous mud. Soldiers felt their energy drained by bitter winds and relentless rain, the hills muffled sounds allowing the enemy to move unseen and unheard. Trails vanished into the mist, leading entire regiments astray, deep into hostile territory. The English soon realized they were not just fighting men, they were battling the ground beneath their feet. To an outsider, the Highlands appeared as simple hills and valleys, but to the unprepared English army, it was a treacherous maze. Steep inclines tested endurance, separating the resilient from the exhausted. Armor became more a burden than protection, dragging soldiers down during rocky ascents. Streams, harmless from a distance, proved to be icy obstacles, cutting off supply lines and isolating divisions. Dark forests, painted with Scotland's green beauty, transformed into traps waiting to ensnare them. Relentless rain turned paths into deep mud, making sound judgment a folly. Conversely, Highlanders knew this challenging terrain as intimately as they knew an old friend. They used every peak and glen to their advantage, their movements reflecting a lifetime of familiarity. The Highlanders moved like shadows, their presence announced only by the surprises they delivered. Where English formations lumbered along, slowed by their own logistics, the Scots moved in compact units designed for speed and impact. The land was their silent ally, providing routes for stealthy retreats and lightning raids. Wrapped in sodden cloaks, they monitored the invaders, relying on the swirling mist to conceal their movements. The English perceived the Highlanders as phantoms of the north, swift and silent, disappearing into the landscape that was their home. Heavily burdened English soldiers trailed these ghostly adversaries who struck quickly, melting away like smoke before a counterattack could be formed. The Highlanders didn't linger. They hit hard and withdrew, a strategy honed by generations of conflict. It was a game of wits, favoring those in tartan, schooled in the rugged symphony of their wild home. The persistent mist acted as an unwavering ally, rolling across the land, concealing movement and muffling sound until reality seemed fluid and uncertain. Under this cloak, Scots retreated, emerging in unexpected places, leaving English forces grasping at shadows. Logistics became another formidable enemy for the English forces. Supply trains ground to a halt in the unforgiving landscape, each campaign relying on diminishing supplies from the south. Shortages of food and clothing plagued soldiers, accustomed to gentler climates, now weary from cold and hunger. Foraging yielded little, as the land was sparse and its resources fiercely guarded by the locals. Meanwhile, English forces, bound by inflexible hierarchies, found themselves ill-suited to the unpredictable theater of Highland warfare. Their rigid tactics crumbled against the agile Scots who embraced the chaos, turning it to their advantage. Despite the challenges, some English commanders began to adapt, seeking wisdom from the very land that thwarted them. They studied Highland tactics, even forming alliances with clans willing to exchange support for favor. But widespread adoption of these adaptive strategies was hampered by traditionalism and the arrogance of imperial belief in their superior systems. This inflexibility came at a significant cost. Men, morale, and resources were consumed by a landscape they had failed to understand. In the Highlands, battles were not just contests of force, but of wits and will. For the Scots, each skirmish was a vital test of endurance. Mind over material, fighting spirit and indomitable will were their allies. As trickery triumphed where brute force failed, the land became a demanding, strategic chessboard. Psychological warfare played a critical role. Whispered rumors and phantom sightings spooked English troops, fabricating a battlefield populated by more than just physical enemies. The Highland tactics were a testament not just to military prowess, but to a culture deeply interwoven with its land. The English learned that without understanding this harsh, resilient environment, their aspirations risked being consumed by it. The land itself, wild and impenetrable, wrote the final chapters of these battles, etching memories of unity, strength, and an enduring ancestral power into every ridge and valley. This land, both guardian and provider, remained a canvas for the Highland legacy, a fierce song of survival and a gentle hymn of persistence. The Jacobite risings were deeply infused with a fierce loyalty to the House of Stuart, woven into the very fabric of Highland society. For the clan chiefs, the Stuarts were more than just political figures. They were the rightful kings, divinely ordained and culturally resonant. Like the mist that draped their rugged landscapes, tales of heroism and honor swirled around hearth fires, keeping alive the dream of a Stuart restoration. This was not merely romantic nostalgia, but a powerful rallying cry compelling the Highlands to rise in rebellion. Yet the Highlanders' loyalty was more than simple allegiance to the king across the water. The Stuarts represented a promise to restore traditional rights and ways of life that many Highlanders felt were under threat. With each new ruler on the English throne came the dread of losing ancient Celtic customs to the encroaching wave of Anglicization. This looming subjugation only steeled the resolve of the clansmen, echoing in the haunting skirl of bagpipes as war parties gathered to defend a world where kings were defined not by crowns, but by the clans willing to fight for them. Highland warriors were not products of formal military training, but emerged from the brutal hardships of their daily existence. Here every man was a fighter, hardened by the rugged land itself. Their skills were not taught but honed through the necessity of defending their homes against rival clans and invaders. With mastery in guerrilla warfare, Highlanders struck with the land as their ally before vanishing like phantoms. These homegrown skills were pivotal to the Jacobite cause, where fighting spirit proved formidable. However, this traditional prowess faced a formidable challenge from the introduction of muskets and regimented infantry. While the Highlanders were not unaware of the musket's power, they struggled against the cold precision of disciplined infantry. Valor and individual glory characterized Highland warfare, but modern battlefields demanded mechanical efficiency. The iconic Highland charge, ferocious and swift, often faltered against disciplined volleys. Each musket shot pierced both flesh and spirit, revealing the harsh truth. Centuries-old tactics, once seemingly unbreakable under their banners, were being outflanked by the clinical strategies of modern warfare. On a summer day in 1689, the Battle of Killiecrankie demonstrated what Highland clans could achieve with tactical genius. The legendary Highland charge, with claymores gleaming in the sunlight, shattered enemy ranks in moments, proving their immense strength. This victory, however, became a deceptive illusion, lulling clans into a false sense of security. Though stamped with triumph, the battle blinded them to the growing power of modern military tactics. Killiecrankie was a tantalizing preview of glory, overshadowed by a short-sightedness regarding the changing face of war. For centuries, the jagged contours of the Highlands were both a blessing and a curse. Initially, they provided the Highlanders with a strategic advantage, as their intimate knowledge of the land allowed them to turn glens and passes into deadly ambush sites. But as the rebellion wore on, these strongholds became traps when more formalized armies closed in, severing escape and supply lines. So reliant on their terrain, once fierce tactics faltered on unfamiliar ground. Driven from their familiar turf, the Highland charge stumbled, highlighting that even the mightiest warriors' effectiveness is tied to their intimate knowledge of their land. The Moor of Culloden in 1746 marked the tragic climax of the Jacobite cause, a battlefield where Highland pride met the stark reality of modern warfare. The Highland charge collided with the prepared ranks of government troops armed with muskets and artillery, a devastating clash of valor versus firepower. Culloden signified not just a loss, but the painful crystallization of the gap between age-old tactics and the cold calculations of contemporary warfare. As the smoke settled, the truth emerged. The old ways could no longer withstand the new firepower, leaving the dreams of a restored kingdom shattered. After Culloden, the Highlanders' world was irrevocably changed, mirroring the decimation of their traditions. Harsh measures were implemented to ensure another rebellion could not arise, including laws stripping Highlanders of their tartans, arms, and rights to gather. These laws struck at the very heart of their combat culture, a heritage once expressed through the mystical harmonies of a lost past. While the Jacobite dream had failed, transformation lay ahead. Many Highlanders became breadwinners abroad, joining foreign forces where they ironically embraced the very discipline they had fought against. The legacy of their defiance found new echoes, with their culture surviving even in retreat. The Jacobite rebellions marked not just a defeat, but a poignant transition, as modern military leaders began to glean lessons from ancient tactics. Guerrilla warfare observed in the glens inspired strategies favoring mobility over traditional head-on clashes. Though their revolution seemed buried in Culloden soil, its spirit contributed to revolutionary military insights. The dynamics of Highland warfare provided future strategists with valuable lessons, ensuring the legacy of their spirit endured. As time passed, the Jacobite cause was romanticized, transforming tales of loss into legends of valor and grandeur. Literature and art portrayed the risings as nostalgic legends, often highlighting heroism while downplaying the desperation. This romanticization, however, did not diminish the Highlanders' indomitable spirit. They remained symbols of courage, embracing narratives of resilience and adaptation. Today, they serve as cultural icons, bridging the past and present, enriching Scotland's heritage with their enduring legacy. In the wake of the Battle of Culloden, the British government faced a daunting challenge, imposing control over the unruly Scottish Highlands. The region, renowned for its rugged terrain and fierce clan warriors, demanded a new approach to governance. one that could overcome the unpredictability of its geography. The Highlands were a land where battles unfolded in a chaotic ballet of stealth and speed, where the terrain dictated the terms of warfare. This mountainous maze favored the cunning and swift, those who navigated its dense forests and hidden paths with an expertise rooted in generations of survival. For the British occupying forces, the jagged peaks and misty glens of the Highlands were tactical nightmares. The answer lay in an ambitious plan to tame these natural defenses with an unprecedented tool: roads. Enter General George Wade, a figure dedicated to transforming the Highlands into a more manageable domain. Wade's vision was as audacious as the wild vistas he aimed to conquer. He intended to pierce the heart of the resistance with serpentine paths carved through the untamed wilderness. Wade's mission was to dismantle the very backbone of Highland martial advantage, turning the landscape into a conduit of imperial power. Roads were to be the arteries through which control would flow, lines drawn across the canvas of the land to enable the swift deployment of troops. Building these roads was no small feat. It was a campaign against nature, demanding immense resilience and ingenuity. Soldiers and local laborers slogged through merciless conditions, literally and figuratively moving mountains to carve solid ground from the unyielding rock. Constructing these roads was as much a battle against the elements as against the dissident clans. Workers faced not only the environmental perils of avalanches and relentless storms, but also the scorn of locals who viewed these intrusions as shackles on their autonomy. Every mile of roadway was hard-won, imprinted with the sweat and perseverance of those who toiled on it. The roads were intended to assert authority, not just physical but symbolic, marking a strategic reimagining of warfare in a land once considered impenetrable. The terrain, once an ally to the clans, was now being reshaped to serve their conquerors, a harbinger of the enduring cultural shift that was to follow. These roads, typically around 16 feet wide, incorporated structures like bridges and drainage systems to withstand the Highlands' rain-laden whims. They became vital veins linking garrisons and forts, stations of power that exerted far-reaching influence. Where terrain had given Highlanders a strategic upper hand, roads now undercut their ability to utilize the land's secrets. Highlanders who had once navigated with impunity through tracks known only to them now found their paths under the march of a new order. These arteries of empire connected forts like Fort George and Fort Augustus, drawing the Highlands into the fold of British strategy and control. Yet this encroachment was not merely physical. The roads severed the Highlanders from their mystique-laden autonomy, exposing not just tactical vulnerabilities, but cultural ones. The once isolated region was now connected, with threads binding the Highlands into the web of the empire. They paved the way for new ideas, settlers, and economic opportunities to flow, redefining what it meant to be Highland. There was a significant cultural and societal transformation, a slow unwinding of clan influence replaced by external authority, bringing with it changes to the rhythms of daily life. The construction of such infrastructure contributed to the decline of the clan system, fraying the communal threads of kinship and loyalty that had been tightly spun for centuries. Traditional warfare, deeply rooted in shared geography and kin-based strategies, became obsolete against the organized might of an imperial army, aided by terms dictated by the new roads. The cultural fabric interwoven with the geography, a symbiotic relationship of land and legend, began to unravel, altering the Highlands beyond simple military annexation. Even as the land changed, the Highland spirit adapted, finding new ways to express resistance. The songs and stories that spoke to the heart of Highland identity became vessels of resilience, narrating tales of heritage in defiance of the imposed changes. This resilience carved its own pathways, nurturing the essence of Highland life beneath a mantle of domination. For while the roads symbolized control, they could not erase the enduring cultural pulse of the Highlands, which continued to thrive in unexpected forms, adapting even as it held steadfast to the past. Today, these roads serve a different purpose. They are silent witnesses to a shared history, testaments to the collision of cultures. What was built as a means of control now connects communities, both distanced by time and united by those very pathways. Modern travelers tread these stones and veins, tracing ancestral steps while forging new stories on familiar terrain. Interpretation centers and cultural landmarks dot these roads, inviting everyone to partake in this grand saga of triumph, struggle, and the ever-shifting interplay between past and present. As we travel these stones, we sense the ghosts of history merging with our own journey, an eternal dialogue linking us to a land where the stones still whisper of wars, warriors, and a culture that refuses to be forgotten. In the quiet embrace of the Scottish Highlands, where mist clings to the rugged terrain like an ancient secret, history breathes softly among the ruins of castles scattered across this storied land. These stone sentinels, now ghostly husks of their former grandeur, once pulsed with life and ferocity, their walls ringing with the cries of warriors whose fate was often determined by the land itself. As you tread among these remnants, the wind seems to carry whispers of sieges long past, painting eerie tales in each rustle through the stone corridors, still echoing the cries of heroism and the sounds of despair. The allure of these fortresses lies not just in their storied past, but in how seamlessly they blend into the hills, as if carved by hand from the very rock that once offered both sanctuary and strategic advantage. Scattered amidst these landscapes are ancient cairns, a solemn tribute to the warriors buried beneath. These stone mounds, weathered by time, have become shrouded in both mystery and legend, standing as stoic guardians of memory. In the chill morning fog, they evoke the past with an unsettling clarity, suggesting stories of battles and sacrifices made in the name of kin and clan. To their descendants, they are sacred and silent, a physical remembrance of life and honor woven into the soil. The meticulous placement of each stone reflects community and collaboration, each grave echoing the clatter of shields and the ghostly chorus of long-ago war cries. The very names drawn from the Gaelic tongue drape across the Highlands like a verbal map to its bloodied history. Glencoe, Culloden, Bannockburn. These are more than just locations. They are storied echoes, their origins steeped in the passions of human conflict. They tell tales with a rhythm and cadence that has survived centuries, ensuring the sagas of courage and conflict ripple across generations. Like whispered incantations, they urge travelers and locals alike to listen closely as they map the narrative of these haunted hills. A tapestry spun from threads of tragedy and triumph, stitched into the very fabric of the earth itself. The natural world has borne witness to the dance of wit and warfare, its unyielding crags and hidden valleys, a testament to the trials faced by those who knew these lands intimately. Each ridge and ravine seems to hold its breath, having seen the march of countless feet upon paths carved unevenly into the earth, now softened over time, but still whispering of those who once dared to travel them. The mountains, silent and imposing, watch as visitors seek to connect with this enduring legacy, a terrain that holds a silent story of endurance and strategy. Even now, the land offers its scars as lessons. Each gully and ridge is a chapter of creativity and survival for anyone who dares to read them through the lens of memory and history. The cultural echoes of these historic clashes resonate through the music and lore of Scotland, where bagpipes cry out in mournful tribute and dances commemorate the strength once vital to the art of war. Each melody and story captures snippets of confrontation and cunning, a reminder of a people's endurance and unity in the face of daunting odds. These narratives sketch out the contours of human emotion and experience, each carefully crafted word drawing listeners into a realm that seems promised to those willing to stand firmly within its haunting grasp. Modern reenactments delve into this fold of time, painting vivid pictures of bygone battles against the scenic backdrop of the hills. Here, history isn't merely observed but felt and breathed, drawing participants into a world where sword and shield were extensions of will and identity. These reenactments serve as mirrors to the past, inviting both participants and observers into a dance with history that celebrates not just martial prowess, but human connection and curiosity. The Highlands' charm isn't purely historical, but weaves an enigmatic mystique that continually draws those who seek its mysteries. Each twist of path or blanket of myth suggests untold stories, perhaps of mythical warriors or shadowed creatures, bridging the divide between history and legend, binding the ancient and the modern with invisible threads. The persistent mist clinging to each vale and peak seems to obscure the edges of time itself, where at any moment a fragment of past life might play itself out in a land where each stone feels alive with quiet whispers and eternal echoes. Among all these tales lies the impact of Highland warfare on the tactics of the wider world. The strategies born from necessity and geographical intimacy did not fade with time, providing blueprints for future conflicts fought on uneven ground. In every rushing wave of soldiers that has followed, the Highlands' lessons of agility, surprise, and utilizing space have found new life, a testament to the enduring wisdom of what this land has taught its natives. As generations pass, preserving and commemorating this complex, rugged heritage holds the key to honoring the spirit of the Highlands. Efforts to secure ancient sites and tales allow the ground to speak of its past without constraint. Each preserved ruin and curated tale is a vital strand within the cultural tapestry. It's not just history that dances here, but the timeless human spirit caught like sunlight within the folds of heather-covered hills. So, as we conclude this journey through the Highlands, it becomes clear that the warriors and landscapes have left indelible marks, deeper than the scars of history alone, allowing us to glimpse into a world that once was and always will be. If these stories have touched you in ways you didn't expect, consider liking and subscribing to hear more tales that breathe life into worlds seemingly forgotten, yet so deeply connected to who we are today.